New footage from inside ESPN is giving fans a rare look at what happened after Ryan Clark and Cam Newton were fired. From the tense moments inside the building to the reactions that followed, the clips are spreading everywhere, and people think they reveal more than ESPN ever intended. Let me catch you up. It happened on a Monday. Ryan Clark was sitting on the set of NFL Live, doing what he'd done for 11 years, breaking down football, trading opinions, being one of the most recognizable voices on the network. Then, during a commercial break, everything changed. Clark said he got a text from the showrunner telling him to call his boss, and he called during the break. That's when he learned a story was about to leak about his exit from the network. Sources told The Athletic that Clark was informed of his firing during Monday's NFL Live show, and the anchor subsequently did not finish the program. Think about that for a second. A guy who's been on air for over a decade, mid-broadcast, told it's over, and he doesn't even get to finish the show. He commented during the majority of NFL Live, but was not there for the final segment after reportedly finding out he had been let go from the network while the show was on air. Why would ESPN do it that way? According to the reporting, it wasn't random cruelty. It was panic. The Athletic reports that ESPN decided to tell Clark during the broadcast out of fears that news of his departure would leak, with sources saying they did not want him to read it online before being told in person. Other outlets confirmed the same thing. Initially, ESPN planned to tell Clark that he was let go on Tuesday morning, in line with other layoffs. But media inquiries had led the network to fear that Clark would find out he was fired online before it had a chance to tell him. So picture the scene inside that studio. A commercial break, a phone call, and then Clark has to decide, do I go back out there and finish the show like nothing happened? He didn't. And when reports started circulating that he wasn't forced off set, that it was some mutual calm decision to just not go back, Clark shut that down immediately. He didn't mince words either. I wasn't forced, I asked. Should I be done now? He wrote. The answer was yes. That's Ryan Clark, on the record, disputing the softened version of the story. He wanted people to know exactly how it went down, not laid off. Not quietly stepping away, but let me put this to bed. I wasn't laid off. I was fired, Clark said on a podcast appearance days later. Then came Cam Newton. One day after Clark's exit, Newton learned he was next. Cam Newton, the former NFL MVP, was fired the next day, and the layoffs are part of broader reductions at the parent company, Disney, following ESPN's acquisition of NFL Network earlier this year. Newton had been building real momentum at the network. ESPN featured Newton over the past 2 seasons as a debate partner for Stephen A. Smith on First Take, and last season, the network elevated Newton to replace Shannon Sharpe as Smith's primary Monday co-host. During football season, the show's highest-rated day of the week, that's not a fringe hire getting cut. That's the guy who took over the network's biggest debate slot on its biggest day of the week, and within 12 months, he's out the door too. The 2 firings landing back-to-back, inside the same building, in the same week, is what sent this thing viral. ESPN made headlines after abruptly laying off roughly 10 employees across Monday and Tuesday, with Ryan Clark and Cam Newton among the most notable departures. And it wasn't just Clark and Newton. The network parted ways with several high-profile personalities, including Ryan Clark, Cam Newton, Tom Pelissero, and longtime broadcaster Carl Ravitch. But it's Clark and Newton whose exits blew up the timeline because of how personal, how public, and how immediate the reactions were. Inside those ESPN hallways, colleagues were reportedly stunned. And outside the building, the response from people who knew both men was instant, loud, and impossible to ignore. Once the news got out, it didn't take long for people connected to Clark and Newton to start talking. And the reactions weren't measured corporate statements. They were raw, immediate, and public. The loudest of them all came from Deion Sanders. Coach Prime has known both men for years, and he wasted no time putting his feelings on record. This is one of many reasons I love this brother to life. Sanders wrote on X, "This was arguably the best talent on the ESPN roster. How can you know WHO still be there and real Clark 25 ANT? Wow. And please tell me the rumors of Cameron Newton ain't true and this dude is still there." Notice what Sanders was doing there. He wasn't just defending Clark. He was hoping out loud that the rumors about Newton were wrong. They weren't. Sanders' hopes were short-lived, as the rumors surrounding Newton proved to be accurate, with the former NFL quarterback also among those laid off by ESPN. So within 24 hours, Sanders went from cautious optimism to watching a second friend walk out the door. And he made it clear this wasn't a small deal to him. He called out the network directly, questioning why the two of them were let go while other names stayed put. Coach Prime blasted the network's decision to cut his most vocal allies, questioning the strategic overhaul that sidelined top-tier talent during Disney's latest wave of workforce reductions. Then there was Stephen A. Smith. If anyone had a front-row seat to what Clark and Newton meant to the network, it was him. He'd shared a desk with both of them. Smith didn't hold back either. Smith has made his frustration clear over the network's decision to part ways with Ryan Clark, expressing his disappointment at the analyst's sudden departure. Ryan Clark, someone I consider to be arguably the best NFL analyst in America, is no longer with ESPN, Smith said, and he didn't stop there. Smith let his emotions show on air. I can't even tell y'all how much that hurts. He's a man, so he'll handle it the way men do, but I'm going to miss him, and I'm not happy about this decision one bit. Think about what that means. Smith is one of the most powerful voices at ESPN, arguably the face of the entire network, and he's publicly saying he's unhappy with a decision his own bosses made. That doesn't happen by accident. That's a guy who genuinely lost two people he worked with side by side, and he wanted the audience to know it bothered him. The third voice came from inside the football world in a different way. Newton's own circle. Emmanuel Acho, someone Newton has pointed to before as an example of life after network television, became part of the conversation too, since Newton referenced him directly when explaining how he planned to move forward. Newton also cited Emmanuel Acho as an example, who has built a solid online following via the Speakeasy podcast. After Acho was dropped by Fox Sports, with whom he had worked since 2020, and had also won a sports Emmy while with the network. So you had Sanders defending both men publicly and emotionally. You had Smith, ESPN's own franchise player, openly frustrated with his own company. And you had Newton himself pointing to Acho as proof that life goes on after a network cuts you loose. Three completely different angles, three different reactions, all circling the same two firings within the same 48 hours. And underneath all of it was a bigger question that started spreading online. Why now? And why them? The framing that spread across sports media even asked whether ESPN was done with certain on-air dynamics, tied to Clark's and Newton's roles, with fans and commentators debating the real motivation behind the timing of these two specific cuts. So why did this happen? ESPN didn't leave people guessing for long. A memo went around, and it laid out the company's official reasoning. A leaked internal memo from ESPN chairman Jimmy Pitaro explained why the network cut Ryan Clark, Cam Newton, and several other employees. The explanation centered on one major business shift. According to Front Office Sports, Pitaro told employees that ESPN's recent integration of NFL Network and other NFL media assets drove most of the layoffs. After Disney completed the transaction earlier this year, giving the NFL a 10% ownership stake in ESPN as part of the agreement. In plain terms, ESPN absorbed a bunch of NFL Network's people, shows, and infrastructure. When two companies merge like that, redundancies happen. Two insiders covering the same beat, two analysts breaking down the same games. Something has to give, but here's what made this round of cuts sting more than a typical merger trim. The moves came despite ESPN's strong financial performance and left many wondering why the company made such sweeping cuts. This wasn't a struggling network tightening its belt. This was a network doing well, choosing to let go of two of its most talked about football personalities anyway. Pitaro tried to soften the blow with language about how the transition would be handled. Pitaro also said ESPN planned to treat affected employees with compassion and respect while helping them through the transition. That line didn't age particularly well once people compared it to how Clark actually found out. Mid-broadcast, scrambling during a commercial break, Ryan Clark reportedly learned he had been laid off while on NFL Live, and Karl Ravech discovered his own fate through social media. Not exactly the compassionate rollout the memo promised. And the list of names caught in this wave kept growing beyond just Clark and Newton. Clark, Ravech, Pelissero, David Lloyd, Stefania Bell, Charles Davis, and Cam Newton all lost their jobs during the latest round of cuts. Some of those departures made sense on paper. People whose roles overlapped directly with NFL Network staff who'd just come over in the merger. Some departures stood out because they involved NFL Network veterans whose roles appeared closely tied to the assets ESPN acquired. But notably, ESPN never got specific about individual cases. Neither Pitaro's memo nor ESPN identified individual reasons for any employee's departure, instead framing the layoffs as part of a broader restructuring effort following the company's integration of newly acquired NFL properties. That silence is exactly what let speculation run wild. Without ESPN saying specifically why Clark or Newton individually made the cut list, fans and media were left to fill in the blanks themselves. Some pointed to contract value. Clark was reportedly earning more than $2 million per year under his current contract, which was signed in February 2024, a number that made him one of the more expensive names on the roster relative to some NFL Network hires who just come in through the merger. Others pointed to on-air history. Clark had been at the center of a couple of viral dust-ups in the months before the layoffs, a heated back and forth with colleague Peter Schrager during a broadcast, where Clark told his colleague while pointing a finger, "We shouldn't do this on TV, so I apologize if people think this is rude. That's the non-player in you," which forced Clark into a public apology afterward. Whether moments like that factored into the decision, ESPN never said. The memo stuck to the merger explanation and nothing more. With the official reason boiled down to a corporate memo, the real story became how Clark and Newton handled the days that followed. And that's where the footage and posts that went viral actually came from. Clark didn't disappear. Less than a day after getting the news, he posted on Instagram, and the caption became one of the most shared parts of this entire story. "Proof of life before the madness of yesterday. I woke up, got in my Tundra, drove to Planet Fitness, and got to work." Clark captioned the post. "The rest of the day was eventful, but the journey continues. My peace is with God, and my humility comes from within." That post spread everywhere. Here's a guy fired mid-broadcast less than 24 hours earlier, showing up with a gym video and a caption that reads like a guy who's already made peace with it. It became the defining image of how he chose to handle it publicly. No bitterness on camera, no meltdown, just a workout and a quiet statement. But privately, or at least in his more candid moments, Clark made clear he wasn't just brushing it off. He went on the Pivot podcast, his own show, and laid out exactly how it felt in real time. Former ESPN analyst Ryan Clark addressed his abrupt dismissal from the network in a Friday appearance on the Pivot podcast. After The Athletic's Andrew Marchand reported that Clark was informed of his dismissal from ESPN while filming NFL Live, and Clark was not present for the episode's final segment. He also revealed something that added a whole new layer to the timing of it all. He'd had a warning months earlier. Clark said around the 8-0 mark of the podcast, he had gotten a heads up about a potential split between himself and the network last summer from fellow ESPN analyst Stephen A. That means Smith may have known something was coming before Clark himself got the final word, which makes Smith's on-air emotional reaction hit differently. That wasn't just shock. That was a guy watching something he feared actually happen. And what made it sting even more for Clark? The timing relative to his career highlights. The outlet also reported that Clark was supposed to be a large part of ESPN's Super Bowl coverage before the decision was made to let him go, with the big game set to broadcast on ESPN for the first time next year. He was on the cusp of covering the biggest game of his broadcasting career, and instead he was gone before it happened. Newton's response looked different, but it carried the same underlying message: no bitterness, just redirection. He went on his own YouTube show, 4th and 1, and addressed it directly for the first time. "You can't make me hate ESPN. What I've learned, it was an internship. I am a former athlete that did not study journalism. So now when you see how production actually works, you'll be a fool not to take your notes," Newton said. He then pivoted to what's become his whole philosophy since getting the news. "If you don't own your own platform, you're gonna get overlooked, bypassed, and be extinct like dinosaurs," Newton added. That's Newton basically telling his audience, don't rely on a network to define your career. Build something that's yours. He made a point of checking in on Clark specifically, showing the two of them, despite past on-air friction with each other, were aligned in this moment. It's unfortunate what happened to Ryan Clark, but what I will tell you is this: Ryan Clark gonna be okay. The Pivot ain't going nowhere. It's unfortunate what happened to me. Some would think, but I'm good. I got 4th and 1. I ain't going nowhere, Newton said. That's notable, because these two had actually clashed publicly before all this. Just months earlier, Clark had criticized Newton's rankings on air, sarcastically referencing Newton's playing history, and Newton fired back hard, going after Clark's career accomplishments in return. Now here they were, Both let go within a day of each other, and Newton's public message was solidarity, not rivalry. Newton didn't stop at kind words either. He laid out his actual motto for what comes next, name-checking people who've already proven life after a network firing can work out. He'd already used Acho as the example of someone who built a following after a similar exit, and in that same breath made clear his own priority now was doubling down on the platforms he already owns rather than chasing another anchor desk. So here's where things actually landed. Two of ESPN's most recognizable football voices gone within 24 hours of each other. Both departures becoming instantly public, both getting the same kind of visceral reaction from people who knew them best. Sanders defending them online, Smith visibly upset on his own show, Newton and Clark publicly supporting each other, despite months of friction before any of this happened. The footage and posts that spread across social media weren't staged. They were the real-time fallout of a merger-driven cleanout that ESPN's own chairman confirmed in a memo, tied directly to the network folding in NFL Network's assets after Disney's deal gave the league a stake in ESPN. That's the mechanical reason. But the human reason, why this particular pair of firings became the story everyone couldn't stop watching, comes down to who Clark and Newton were inside that building. One was an 11-year fixture, an Emmy winner, someone Stephen A. Smith called arguably the best analyst in the country. The other was the guy handed the biggest debate chair in sports media only a year earlier. Both of them are already moving. Clark still has the pivot, still has his platform with Fred Taylor and Channing Crowder, and by his own account, he's not worried about landing on his feet. Newton has 4th and 1, and he's leaning into the idea that the firing barely slowed him down. If anything, he's framing it as validation for the platform he was already building outside of ESPN's walls.